screen now?
Yes,
I
perfect. Go
think
ahead.
so. Oh, okay. So thank you all for being here today. Today, I think it could be interesting for every one of us, no matter where you're from or no matter what type of subject you are following at the moment, because AI has been, a huge trend for the last couple of years, and it's affecting a lot of different industries. So today, I would like to discuss with you how it impacts the legal field, but also different industries. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them through the chat so we can discuss these later. So as you are all maybe aware of, you can see that the tech advancements of AI greatly transform basically any industry, because before there was a lot of paperwork, and now we can streamline a lot of different processes to make it more efficient, also less expensive because we need less time to perform different processes, and we can boost efficiency. Now, I do know that there are many people who are terrified by AI because they think it will survive us or it may outsmart human beings. And then the other question is it used correct? Because the person who developed the AI tool might have bias, or perhaps it's not regulated enough. And we do have laws and legal frameworks related to AI, but because it's still quite new, there is still a lack of clarity, and many questions may arise around liability, or how things can be patented, or what we can do to streamline processes in the correct way. So I would like us to take a moment at the beginning of this lecture to think about AI, and I'm wondering if you can name any examples of AI that improve human activities. So if you have any idea, please raise your hand so we can check what your thoughts are. I'm eager to hear your thoughts about this topic. Anybody has any idea? Okay, well, there are many different things we can actually think of how it can improve human activity. So, for example, we have tools nowadays that can, for example, take notes during a meeting, or we can, for example, think about routine tasks we can automate. Another example could be improved decision making, because you can upload different documents nowadays, and then an AI tool can review a lot of different documents at the same time, which could, for example, for a human being take hours. Now, there are also many examples of AI that might not contribute. So, if we think about AI tools that might not contribute, this is not only because it's new, but it's also because there is still a lack. There is not always a framework yet available. So you can think about the different challenges posed by AI technology, because it presents both opportunities but also challenges in the legal sector. So like we discussed previously, we can use it to automate routine tasks, or to enhance any research, or to improve decision making. But it can also work against us, because we are not sure who created the AI tool. And for example, if it's biased or it's using specific information from a specific perspective, it might lead to disadvantages, for example, job displacement, or ethical problems, or the need for regulation. So in today's lecture, I would like to address the key AI legal issues and discuss strategies how we can tackle them. And the goal for today is to understand the impact of AI on the legal practice, and how we can move forward together to use AI in the correct way, and also to get a better understanding of what we can do with AI. So the key AI legal issues we are going to discuss today are, first of all, AI and data privacy, because we need inputs to have an outcome, which is processed by AI, and it requires a large amount of personal data in order to get any outcome. So the second topic we will discuss is the AI and intellectual property challenges. So for example, if we create art or music with AI, then you might raise questions about who is the owner. Is that going to be the user or the one who created the AI tool? Can we even copyright it? Like these type of questions are all still not defined yet. There is still case law maybe that we need, or different laws we have to create in order to fine tune how intellectual property is regulated in the field of AI. Another example is AI and bias discrimination, because yeah, I just discussed, it can create bias and discrimination, and that might lead to unfair outcomes. So it's always good to check and monitor any outcome, because yeah, it's not a guarantee that the answer is correct. Then also there is AI in criminal justice, because it can be used to analyze data and predict, for example, where crimes occur. And then we will discuss liability and accountability, because determining liability for AI-related harm can be a huge challenge, because the AI system operates autonomously. So then the question is, who will be liable for any outcome? That's something we do not know always. And then we will end with the ethical considerations. We can think about some ethical questions and the impact on the society. And then we will have time to conclude the lecture and questions you may have. So if you have any questions, meanwhile, please feel free to drop them in the chat. And otherwise, we will have time at the end of the lecture as well to have a question. So first, I would like to start off with the question is, what is AI? So basically, AI means the simulation of human intelligence in machines, and it enables the machine to learn, reason, and self-correct. And AI encompasses various types. So we can think about machine learning or natural language processing, and it's usually categorized in two types. The first one is narrow AI, and the second one is strong AI. Narrow AI is the most common one, because the strong AI is still a hypothetical theory. And narrow AI is mainly a task-specific tool. So for example, you can think of Siri or Netflix. If you open or Spotify, for example, it will give you recommendations for songs that match your preferences, basically. While strong AI has human-like cognitive abilities. So this is something which will be maybe superior in the end, but narrow AI is really focused on one specific task or a few different tasks specifically. These are quite common nowadays as well. So I'm sure we can all think of hundreds of tools nowadays already, because AI is developing super fast in a way that I think most of us are not maybe even able to keep up with. But we do have AI systems which I think are very helpful. So for example, AI systems that can assist in the diagnosis of any disease, or you can help to figure out, for example, a specific recipe. It can analyze fast medical data in a much more fast way than human beings can. So we now have more options to discover any drug for a disease or to personalize medicine, because AI can can go through much more data than we can. At the same time, discover patterns and come up with different solutions than human beings could do in the same amount of time, which I think is a great advantage. Also, for example, in finance, we can use it for fraud detection, because it can monitor transactions for unusual patterns. It can find algorithms, so for example, high frequency trading or unusual patterns, or it can serve as a customer service, so for example, a chatbot. These type of activities are, or they can be, very time consuming for any human being. So if we could use AI tools for the performance of such specific tasks, we can focus on the things which are much more important. So we can also win and gain a lot if we use AI tools in the correct way. Another example is entertainment. AI drives recommendation systems, for example, YouTube or Spotify. And it's also increasingly used to create content. So you can think of generated music or art. There are tools. So if we go to an AI music generation tool, we can now give the tool, for example, the topic we are speaking about today during lecture, and it will give us a song for the AI use specifically, and the goal of this lecture within maybe 1 or 2 minutes, which I think we could not even imagine 10 years ago, right? Because 20 years ago, we just got used to a mobile phone and things are processing like super fast right now. So it's difficult to imagine where we can be in the next 30 years from now. So I would like to discuss with you a few examples of AI tools. These two are quite human alike. So the first one is IBM Watson. This is a powerful computer system and it's designed to process and provide answers to questions posed in a natural language. And then there is also Hume AI. I'm not sure if anybody of you has ever used one of these tools, because if you try to use Hume AI, you will notice that the way it responds to you is very natural. So it sounds basically like you're talking to a human being, and it's very empathetic. So it will almost feel like you're speaking with a human. You can still notice the difference, but it really feels quite similar. And I'm surprised that we already reached this type of technology nowadays. There are many, many other tools which we can discuss. The tools you can use to upload documents, review PDFs, or there are even tools right now that act as a virtual assistant or that will take notes during the meeting, self-driving cars that can drive itself completely. So yeah, I think it's really interesting to check where we are right now and maybe compare this in the future, because it's developing rapidly. So hello everyone again, thank you for joining. If you're just joining, we are now discussing what AI is and providing you a few examples of AI tools. And I hope you now all have a basic understanding of AI and its applications. And then now I would like to discuss with you the legal challenges that arise from its adoption. So the first topic of today is AI and data privacy. The input of data, which we need to provide the AI tool or the AI machine, will provide us any outcome. So you can think of data as the fuel of the AI machine. The more data we provide it, the better AI will be to learn and make any prediction, basically. So the more data they have, the better it will perform. However, the more data you're going to provide it with, then the more privacy concerns we can have, because it's not always regulated. So how will data be collected? How will it be stored? Where will it be stored? How will it be used? What will happen in case of any data breach? Who will be liable? Are there even any legal frameworks we have? So in Europe, we, for example, have the General Data Protection Regulation. It's called the GDPR. I'm not sure if any one of you is familiar with the GDPR. But under the GDPR, consumers, they have several key rights to check their personal data and to see how it is being used. So the first one is very important. That's the right to be informed about how your data is used. Then the second one is the right to access personal data held by any company. The third one is the right to rectification, which means that you are allowed to correct any inaccurate data, because it shouldn't be inaccurate published on the internet. Then the other one, which I think is one of the most important one, is the right to be forgotten. This means basically that you have the right to erase your data at all times. Another right is to restrict processing, which means that consumers can request that their data is not being used by companies, and it should only be stored. So we have Article 5 of the Data Protection Act, and then it sets out 7 key principles, which are actually processing of data. And these key principles basically govern the entire act, and it should aim to ensure compliance with the spirit of the data protection law. But even more important, it should aim to protect you as an individual, because you are a data subject under GDPR, and all data which is used must be compliant with the law. It must be fair. It must be transparent. The purpose should be limited. The amount of data being used must be minimized. It must be accurate. It must be limited in storage, so it cannot store all of your data. It must be treated in confidentiality, and it must be accountable use as well. So I have a question for you today. So for example, if you provide any customer data to a company and this company is using your customer data, can they sell your data to any other companies or to a specific company because they would like to improve their business activities, and you as a customer can be part of their target audience. So what do you think? Are they allowed to sell your data? For example, I collect your data. Can I sell your customer data to another company in order to help them improve their business activities? What do you think? I see one yes here. And then I would like to hear why you think this is permitted under the GDPR. How come? Antonella, can I please ask the students who think it is allowed to unmute themselves and to provide a clarification?
Yes, they need to raise their hand so I can see which is the one that raised their hand. They also commenting on the chat their answers.
Yes, I see here a few students who answer yes, but I cannot see. I'd like to
Okay,
hear
we
why you
have
think this is allowed.
Bibi. Let's see what she has to say.
I have not, good morning, everybody. I have not heard from the beginning, but I think no, because without a proper legal paper, you cannot sell anything you want to another company. I don't think it will be legal. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Bibi, for your answer. Anybody else would like to um, answer the question as well? Because Bibi, you actually mean no, right? So it's not allowed. And you are right. People who answered the question with yes, can you please explain why or for what reason it could be allowed in this specific scenario?
Let's see what Gabriel Arab has to say.
My answer was no, because actually it is not allowed for any company to sell your data to any other company without your permission, unless there is an agreement between the person and the company. At that time, your data can be sold to another company. But if there is no any prior agreement between the two, it is not allowed.
Correct, Gabriel. Thank you for answering the question. They need, first of all, to make very clear what type of data they are collecting from you. They must have obtained your prior consent. So you have to give them approval before they can use any type of data you are providing to the company. It must be very clear for which period it's being stored, and it must be transparent. So you always have the right to ask what type of data is being used, and they cannot use it for any other specific reason than they have stated before they got your approval. If the conditions change, they must get your approval again, because you did not approve the use of your customer data for any other specific reason than the reason that has been stated before. So any data that is being collected or stored or being used from you, they need to obtain prior consent under the GDPR in Europe. This is a very strict rule. You cannot just use any data for any other reason than they have obtained your prior approval before. If they do, they can be imposed to a very hefty fine. So this is important to take into account. They cannot just use your data and sell it to any other company. For example, if I own a specific shop and I work with an insurance company, the insurance company is asking if they can buy my customer data to get a better insight on their target audience. This is not allowed because I did not collect your data as my customer for this specific reason. Even if they will not share the data with any other third party, this is not allowed under the GDPR. So I hope this clarifies a bit about the GDPR and the data privacy laws. So in the States, it's different, okay? So in the United States, there are federal and state laws that cover different aspects of data privacy, like health data, financial information, or data collected from children. These are different laws being used. So data privacy in the States is different than in Europe. Why? Because in some states, the data being collected by many companies is not regulated, and these companies can actually use, sell, or share data without notifying you. So it's important for you to be aware of this lack of regulation regarding personal data handling, because the data you're sharing with them might not be regulated and it could be vulnerable. So in Europe, we have the GDPR. In some states of the US, there are different laws that apply. And I'm wondering if you can name any data privacy law that has been passed in the States. Do you know any specific law that is applicable in the USA? There are two very famous ones. Anyone has any idea? Okay, I will tell you. One of the most famous ones is the CCPA, the California Consumer Privacy Act. This act was passed in 2018, and it's known as the strictest data privacy law in the States. It applies to any company, basically, that collects personal information about consumers, and it outlines specific rights that you have. So they need to know, as a consumer, what personal information the business is collecting from you, to whom it might be sold, and you always have the right to delete personal information collected by the company. You have the right to opt out of the sale of personal information, and you have the right to non-discriminatory treatment for exercising any privacy rights. This is the most strict privacy law in the States, and it's most alike with the GDPR in many ways. So now I'd like to discuss some of the privacy challenges we have regarding to AI and data breaches. So first of all, a data breach is basically an incident in which unauthorized individuals, like a hacker, for example, or anybody who is not supposed to have your personal data, they gain access to sensitive, protected, or confidential data. So I would like to show you this video. Let me check if it will share my screen. This is a very famous data breach that occurred a couple of years ago, and it's huge because of the. Let me skip this ad. It's huge because of what happens there. I'm not sure if you can see the screen. Let me check.
No, we can
Antonella,
see
can you
the
tell me?
you can share the link to the in the chat so they can see with you.
Okay, I will send it here. If you open the link, then maybe we can watch it together, and I will give you 3 minutes to watch the link. It's a short video of 3 minutes, and it's about a great hack that occurred. And many people, they had a damage claim. It was one of the biggest data breaches in the States so far. So I'll give you 3 minutes to check out the video about what happened with the Equifax data breach. There's no audio. I think you can put on the audio by yourself. Anyway, guys, the video is also included in the PowerPoint file, so I will share it with you. And then Antonella can send this to all of you so you can check it out later. Basically, it explains one of the biggest breaches that occurred. And Equifax in 2019, they announced the data breach, and it exposed the personal information of 147 million people, which is huge. And they finalized the complaint by a settlement, which included up to 425 million to help people affected by the data breach. So for example, if I will share with you my social security number or my credit card number or whatsoever, and this will all be out in the open and anybody can access the sensitive information, that's a huge risk, especially for so many people that were exposed to the data breach. So this was a huge disaster, basically. So can you think of the potential consequences? Well, the consequences are huge because for the company itself, like Equifax, they had financial loss, of course, due to the legal games and claims and the compensation, but also the unauthorized access to sensitive information, right? Because if all your information is on the streets, it might be used by anyone who has a bad intention. Another consequence is the business disruption and loss of productivity, damage to relationship with clients and their partners because they have reputation damage, trust damage, fines and penalties imposed by authorities, and a loss of a competitive advantage, right? Because they are, if they are imposed themselves in such a negative, they might not be seen as the best competitor. That's at least. So data privacy is a major concern in the AI legal landscape as data can be vulnerable. So what about AI and intellectual property? So for example, what would happen if we would consider AI, an AI machine itself, as an inventor? So I would like to discuss with you this example. Stephen Taylor, he was filing for a patent for an invention generated by his AI machine. So he didn't apply for an invention itself, but an invention generated by an AI machine, which makes a difference, which was called Dabus. And he tried to apply in different jurisdictions. He actually applied in many different countries, national and international. And he stated that the AI machine should be patented. And the invention generated by the AI machine, he was developing different types of inventions generated by the AI machine, but it actually led into problems in a lot of jurisdictions. And then the question now is why? Because Taylor, he applied for national and international patents in various jurisdictions because he listed Davos, the inventor. And the question is, can AI be seen like this? Because the application was in many jurisdictions rejected. Now, I wonder, why do you think that the application was rejected? Does anyone have any idea? I see here, so the answer for the previous question was yes or no in AI, since there is no authorized owner for data. Yes, it's linked to that answer. Can we be more specific? What could be the problem here? Who is Taylor filing the application for? Like, what is his question specifically? And how is this done in most of the cases so far? Do we apply for an invention generated by an AI machine? Did we do this 10 years ago? No, because there was no AI machine that could generate an AI invention or any invention, basically. So the problem here is that many jurisdictions, their legal system states that inventors must be human. Okay, so in the US, the legal system says that the inventorship is limited to natural persons under current law. And in Europe, the European Patent Office rejected Dabu's applications because it cited that the inventor must be a natural person instead of an AI machine, which was the problem here. However, in South Africa and Australia, the patents were granted and they recognized Dabus as the inventor, which is very different than in the States and in Europe. So we can check the court ruling of Australia. They mentioned that the origin of the entitlement still lies in human endeavor, basically meaning that the origin is still coming from a natural being. So it was approved there. Now we must also note that South Africa has a very different patent application system than Europe has. They basically check the general checkboxes. It's a different way of approval than we have in Europe, for example. So if we can think about intellectual property complexities, then we have just seen that AI systems, they often generate outputs that may be protected rights, and this can raise concerns about potential infringement. But it's important to make sure that AI-generated content does not infringe on the rights of others. And how can we ensure this? Because there is not always a legal framework yet applicable. And then also, if we use AI and we create, for example, new art or new music, then who will be the owner? And can we even copyright such work? If we do not know who the owner will be, is it the developer? Is it you who is using the AI tool? Or is it the AI machine that generates such work? So there are still many open doors we can think about. And yes, there are still many we have to regulate in order to prevent IP complexities, because many things are not certain or defined yet. So if we think about the lack of clarity in copyright law, we can think, for example, of the Edmond de Bellamy. This was an AI-generated portrait, which you can see here on the right side. And this was generated by an AI machine. And it was actually sold for 430K, which is a huge amount of money. And then the question is, what do we think about the originality and the authorship of the AI-generated content? Is there any legal framework about this? Like, how are we going to address this type of AI work? And then also another problem could be, can we even create proper attribution to handle legal disputes or damage reputation, for example? Because if we give credit to the original creator of such an artwork and an AI machine that is copying the artwork, then how are we going to handle this in the end? So it's still not really clear who will have the copyright in the end. Will it be the user, or maybe no one will own the rights to these works? So it's interesting how these topics will develop itself over the years, I think. So the third topic I would like to discuss with you today is AI and bias or discrimination. So bias in AI can lead to unfair or discriminatory practices because of the AI algorithm that is being developed before. So for example, we can think about the Amazon AI recruiting tool, and it favored actually a lot of male candidates because the training data that the tool is using mainly came from males. Okay, so mainly the resumes of men were the inputs, so the resumes from women were less favored. So this could be very problematic because the diversity between men and women was not in favor of the women who were supposed to be hired as well. So the decision-making process for hiring people was unfair and discriminatory. It still might be working better than a human being, but because it was biased, it was not used anymore because it faced a lot of criticism. So if any data might reflect any historical inequality, the AI will likely repeat it. And because AI is trained on a large data set, if these data sets might contain biased or discriminatory information, then the AI system might still repeat it. So it's really important to think about the data we are providing the AI tool to work with and to use for any decision-making processes, okay? And then the question is also monitor and audit the tool as well, because even if we will have any outcome, we are not sure about the sources the AI tool has used. So I see one hand here. Abdullah, if I pronounce your name correctly, can you please ask your question? Abdullah, can you hear me? I see you raised your hand. If you would like, you can ask your question to all of us so we can answer.
Yes, I'm asking him to unmute himself.
I think we continue because I don't hear you yet. If you have a question, please otherwise ask it through the chat so we can answer. I also see some answers through the chat about the lack of knowledge and information as to the benefits of the system. Yes, that is correct. So it can be biased as well, or it can be created as per the legislation in the territory and the states. That is really true. And this is something we have to be aware of. So this can be a legal challenge as well, because biased outcomes, they can result in unfair treatment or discrimination against certain individuals or groups. And we have to be really aware of any unjust decisions, such as denial of employment, housing, or credit opportunities. And then the problem here is that we are not sure about the sources being used by the AI tool. Like if we put in any data and we get the outcome to maybe work with, we are not sure of the specific sources the AI tool used. So it might be difficult to check because it's not always transparent. So it's really important for us to address any bias in any AI development to make sure we can ensure fairness and to prevent discrimination. And I do believe it's the responsibility of the AI developer and the organizations that work with the AI tool to identify and mitigate bias. Because even if we use any AI tool and we notice there is any risk of bias or it might lead to any unfair treatment, I think we should all make each other aware of the risk, because we might not know until we notice a specific outcome. And I think the AI developer should be aware of the type of input of data, and we must be aware of how we should use the data or how we should ask the questions as well, because we might not all know how to use the AI tool in the most correct way. So now I would like to ask you, what could be a solution to this challenge? What can we do as human beings to prevent unfair outcomes or the potential bias or discrimination? Does any one of you have any idea what we can do as human beings to mitigate risks? I'm eager to hear your thoughts. There are a few things we can do. First of all, you can think about the input of data, for example, like what can we do there? Like, is there anything we can do to enhance a better outcome? I will send you the name of the video. It's also included in the presentation. Yeah, so it's better to update the system. That is correct. It's better to update the system and law and regulations. So I think you mean to be compliant with law and regulations, which is very correct and very true. If we make sure that the AI tool is aware of the laws it must follow and regulations, it might be less likely to have an unfair outcome, because the AI tool is updated with the laws and regulations it must follow at all times. Thank you for sharing your answer. Anyone else have any idea? Yeah, equality, true. It's very important to provide the AI tool with equal information, right? So we can think, for example, of data from a diverse audience and follow the regulation? Yes. Ensure credibility of the data inputs? Yes, that's very correct. We must ensure the data which is being provided is correct and trustworthy. That is very correct, everyone. Thank you for sharing. So what could be a solution? Like you just mentioned, that we have a diverse and representative data set collection. So the data set must represent the data being provided. So to have any chance or fair outcome, we must ensure that the data is actually capable of representing any specific outcome. So it must be diverse. It shouldn't be single-sided. We should audit the AI system and we should monitor this ongoing, and we should evaluate the system performance. So if we have the numbers and statistics and we do regular checkups and we provide a diverse data set, we are less likely to have any bias or discrimination as an outcome of the AI tool. So AI in criminal justice we can use, for example, to predict where crimes are likely to occur. This is supposed to help allocate police resources more efficiently, for example, but it can be a risk. Why? Because it can reinforce racial biases. If the training data reflects historical patterns, for example, that is disproportionately targeting minority communities. So we have to be aware here that the data we are providing it is reflecting a diverse pattern as well, and not only single-sided. So if we discuss the liability of any AI tool, what can we think of? What can we do? Because an AI operates entirely on its own. We can think, for example, of clear guidelines for the AI system to develop and use, or we can think of maybe an insurance policy. This can cover potential liability risks, because the question is who will be liable for the AI tool if we're using it and the AI tool is operating on its own. Should it be the AI machine, or should it be the developer, or the organization that works with the AI tool, or should it be all three of this? What can we do? So in order to deal with this legal issue, we should train the AI tool, check its development, and we should really ensure that the way the algorithm is being used is correct. If there is any decision made which is incorrect, we should document this, and we should correct this as soon as possible to ensure transparency, but also to ensure accountability. I think it's also really important to work with legal experts, because a legal expert can provide the data, for example, about the laws or regulations or the updates in regulations that the AI tool must follow. This way we can ensure more compliance by the AI tools with the legal it should follow. So even in the event of the AI machine being developed or an AI being implemented, we can help to ensure compliance with relevant laws and regulations. We cannot guarantee it yet, but we can help to keep the data safe and to make it more compliant. So it's really important to always monitor any performance and any outcome. You must be aware of the tools the AI machine is using to provide you any outcome. And we must think of the data which is being provided as an input for the AI machine. So we just discussed the insurance. Well, there are various problems we can think of, like data privacy breaches, IP infringements, for example, related to copyrights, and algorithm bias, and businesses that use AI can face lawsuits, penalties, reputational damage, etc. So if we can help them to get any specific insurance coverage which is tailored to AI-related risks, then we might help the potential harm. We can maybe minimize this as well, because it's important to work with any insurance provider that understands the complexities of AI legal issues, because they can be really severe. So if we think about ethical considerations, what can we think of? So for example, if we think about AI in healthcare, this really improve the medical diagnosis because it can work much faster. It can review data in a much faster and much more efficient way. We can offer virtual patient care, treatment adherence. It can process administration much more efficient. So it can lead to a decrease of healthcare costs and a better healthcare outcome as well. But then the question is, how are we going to regulate the data security, especially when it's about patients? This is a major risk. So the privacy in healthcare is a big concern, and the inability of AI to replicate human emotional traits, like the way we can show empathy towards a patient, is a big disadvantage we are still experiencing right now. It may look alike, but it's not there yet. Also, AI is not meant to replace any human clinical profession. It's more meant to enhance their capabilities. So we can use AI as a tool to provide exceptional care, but it should not replace our care yet. But we can definitely use it, and I'm a huge fan of AI because I believe it can help us to streamline processes and to decrease the cost for any specific customer in the end if we use it in the correct way. But the absence of accountability in AI, especially in healthcare or, for example, the legal industry, can be a major barrier. So you should also think of AI, which functions as a black box, because if they process any inputs and they produce you an output with revealing the underlying data or any objective, basically, then we have the black box problem because we are not sure how it is being decided, like what created the specific output, because this is something we cannot see. We provide it with any data, then we get an outcome, and this is called the black box problem. So to address this concern and to protect healthcare practitioners, for example, from being unfairly held liable for errors made by it, we should establish standardized policies and regulatory measures. I think this applies to most of the industries, to be honest. I think it's very important to be able to check how the AI tool came to a specific conclusion, what was the underlying data, or what's the rationale behind it, so we can check and we can monitor the outcomes as well. So it's really important to have rules to regulate this. So the conclusion of today's presentation was that the legal practice, but I think also the healthcare industry, for example, is greatly being influenced by AI technology. AI can pose significant challenges, including data privacy, intellectual property, but also liability, because we are not sure who's supposed to be held liable in many cases. So we can address AI legal issues proactively to protect interest and maintain compliance. I think it's also really important to work together with the people who are developing the AI tool. And the failure to address any AI legal issue can result in very hefty financial consequences for businesses. And if we implement better strategies to navigate AI legal issues, we can help businesses to mitigate risks as well. And we can maximize the benefits of AI technology because we know better what we are doing in the end, and we can have a strategy which we can follow up more specifically. I think it's really important to work with experts because for many of us, AI is still a new tool and it develops much faster than we can actually follow or even track right now. We should be able to monitor and the AI tool as well. And I think it's really important to collaborate with any legal and non-legal professional in this field, so we can effectively address any AI legal issues in a business context, and we can help to find a solution. So I think to promote safe and effective use, everyone, for now and in the future, I think it's really important as well that we are being trained in how we are using the AI tools, so that we know how to use the AI tool correctly, and we ensure that it's actually following up with the laws and regulations that it should follow in a specific scenario. So now I would like to spend some time for any questions you may have or any discussions So I hope this lecture was interesting for you. If you have any questions about AI, or maybe you'd like to share your own experience, or maybe you have an AI tool that you've used recently, maybe you've noticed any bias or specific outcome,